Hello, everyone, and welcome to 360 Retirement. I'm your host, Paul Gebhard, with my guest today, Keith Wiltfong of Capstone Planning. Welcome back, Keith.
No, it's great to be back, Paul.
How you been, man? What's been going on?
Good, staying busy.
Yeah? Staying
Yeah.
busy, expanding a little bit, I heard?
Expanding, yeah.
Yeah?
Yep, we're in the process of actually constructing a 6,400 square foot building,
Wow.
which is really going to expand all facets of the business. And ultimately, I think we're going to be able to really serve the community a lot better.
Love that. So you mentioned 360 Retirement, which I love. I wanted to talk a little bit about the concept of 360 Retirement.
Perfect, yeah.
Yeah.
So 360 Retirement, it really comes from the idea that we're going to get you, or basically have you covered on every single angle. You're going to be absolutely covered, from taxes to portfolio management, estate planning, and really how that all comes together. I think too often we see people that have like maybe annuity over here, or a portfolio over
Yeah.
here, an old insurance policy here.
Yeah, CD
and
somewhere maybe.
A CD somewhere, and they'll have an advisor that they work with. And the biggest thing, and the taxes is never even really talked about. It's like, oh, what it is, right?
Right.
And then some of the advice for like Social Security is, oh, well, take it as soon as you can. So what we try to do is really formalize a plan and actually give our clients a written plan that's going to be a flexible, breathing document that's going to serve them well throughout their life.
Because
And
that's... oh, go ahead. I'm sorry. Sorry.
yeah, because life happens, things change, right? People get sick. Unfortunately, some people pass, and all those, we have to account for that in the planning ahead of time, so we're not surprised for it. So we want to kind of be prepared for the worst and hope for the best.
Yeah, that's good stuff. And did I mention that the show is unscripted? Right? Which is great, because, you know, this is just two guys talking about topics you want to talk about. And that's all things retirement. That's where we're at, right? So let me ask you, you know, when it comes to some of the things that you see people ask about, I've read a lot recently about the Secure Act.
Right.
And what its impact would be. Could you share with us a little bit about Secure
the
Act?
Secure Act officially went into law on January 1st of 2020.
Right.
And it affected a gamut of things. So one thing that it did, it basically allowed for additional options in 401ks. With the idea was, hey, we do a good job of getting you to retirement, but we want to do some things that can get you beyond retirement. So they expanded the availability of, say, like an annuity or something of that nature that's going to be like lifetime income inside 401k plans. The other thing that it did is probably the two biggest impacts to the clients that we work with was, one, it pushed the required minimum distribution. That's basically when the government says, hey, you have to start taking out all the money that you invested your whole life out of those IRAs and 401ks and 403bs. That was at 70.5. That's now pushed to 72. The advantage there is it gives us a little bit more time for some tax planning. And the other real big thing it did, and this affected some estate type planning as well as trusts and things of that nature. So before you could, if for a non-spouse, they could inherit an IRA and then take that over their lifetime. Take the, spend down the IRA over their entire life. So now with these rules, you only have 10 years for a non-spouse. So within 10 years, it has to be completely exhausted. It doesn't have to be systematic, so it doesn't have to be, say, 10%, 10%, 10%, but at the end of the 10 year, it has to be completely exhausted. So for someone that had a single beneficiary and a large IRA, that can make a big difference.
Yeah.
So it lended some planning opportunities potential as well. Now, what's nice is for spouses, those rules didn't change. So if you pass an IRA and your spouse is 100% the primary beneficiary, it simply becomes a spousal IRA. So that didn't change. But as far as kind of the legacy, those options did drastically change. And like I said, we got a little extra time from 70.5 to 72.
Yeah, no, that's good. You know, you mentioned something, you talked about IRAs a little bit. If you don't mind, can I ask you some questions on like Roth IRA conversions?
Yes, yeah.
Can we talk about that a little bit? Because it was interesting, the concept to me is I always was under the impression you can only get a Roth IRA if you can qualify it for it at a certain salary cap, right? Early on, but there's actually some other advantages later on towards retirement.
Yeah, so for some of our younger clients that kind of, their income's too high, so they actually can't contribute to an IRA or Roth IRA, what we actually do is something called a backdoor Roth, where they make a non-contributory, basically, contribution to an IRA, And then once it's actually in there, we then convert it to a Roth IRA. So there's absolutely zero limits on converting IRAs to Roth IRAs. So if you had $1 million, not tax advisable to do this because you still have to pay the tax.
Right.
You can convert it to a Roth IRA.
Got it.
And usually what we'll do, because this is a really big part of our business, is tax efficiency.
Right.
So we'll come up with, say, a Roth conversion plan, because we know at some point we have to take the schedule, and in all likelihood, it looks like taxes are probably going to go higher and not lower. So if we can get a little haircut on taxes, we want to take advantage of it.
Right.
So what we'll do is there's really two main ways that we'll do it. One is called a bracket bumping strategy, where let's just say you're in one bracket, we'll take it to the next bracket and want to convert that amount. But then we're going to overlay that with something called a market timing conversion. And we can really use this heavily in 2020. So if you think about the bucketings that I've talked about, we have this later bucket that's a little bit more aggressive, so it moves a little bit more. So imagine a scenario where we have this later bucket, and then also say, hey, we want to convert $20,000 this year. So then March and February happen, right? The market goes down about 37%. It's almost like a slinky, where you have this IRA, right? And then it goes down, but this is where we then employ that Roth conversion strategy, convert it to a Roth IRA where it's never taxed again. And now over the last year, when it's up, say 40%, right? Now you have all that tax-free growth.
Whoa.
So we'll really combine those strategies for that tax efficiency. And I think it's almost like financial malpractice that advisors are not giving tax advice, because I think it's so critical. It's such a big part, especially of retirement planning and income distribution planning, to be able to speak to taxes.
Yeah. You know, you talk about taxes, and I think that's an interesting thing to also to bring up was when you talked about the Roth IRA conversions and that strategy. But for folks out there that are traditionally a little bit concerned about doing too much with their taxes because of, say, penalty, right? Let's face it, a lot of folks are concerned about what the fallout could be from the IRS, right? So a lot of us go through our lives and we do strategic, tax preparation, which is basically working your past. But tax planning is probably one of the biggest keys to affecting our nest egg, right?
Absolutely, yeah. I think too often people think of taxes and they think of the tax preparation aspect of it, where that is just simply the history. Like, hey, here's what happened over the last year. Go ahead, my CPA or tax accountant or tax preparer and prepares it. What we do is tax planning. So we're going to know what our taxes are going to be, within a reasonable gauge within the next year, 2 years, 3 years. And then as laws change, we're going to be flexible to those laws.
Got it.
So that's the tax planning. That's where I talk about the Roth conversion strategies. That's where we kind of employ those strategies inside that planning.
Yeah.
Otherwise, we're just dealing with history, which
Absolutely.
we can't change history.
No, you're right. Absolutely. There's nothing to do about it then. So that proactive planning is that definitive purpose.
Absolutely.
That you're setting it, knowing you're trying to get them to preserving as much as that nest egg as you can.
Right. And I think the biggest thing, too, it's not necessarily about the dollars and cents, too. It's about why we're doing this.
Why? Yeah.
We're doing this with purpose. We're doing this to have an end goal.
Right.
Like, what are our goals for life? What are our goals for retirement? Right? What are our legacy goals? For a lot of folks, is I want to make sure that my spouse is going to be okay when I'm not here. So those are the things that all these kind of lead into. It's really, I think, that human aspect of it, which I think often gets missed.
Oh yeah, absolutely. It definitely gets missed. And that's why I think the whole 360 approach, I couldn't agree with you more. I mean, one area of retirement is reliant on the other area, and then on the other area. I mean, not having a congruent plan at 360 could be an issue that causes you a major problem you didn't foresee down the road.
No, absolutely. Yeah, missing one piece. I think a good one that we usually see occasionally missed just because of bad advice is that Social Security aspect of it. Well, someone just say, hey, go ahead and take it right at 62. And a lot of the times that is not sound financial advice.
Right.
So realistically, that's a $1 to $2 million asset if you look at the monthly payments that's going to pay you for life.
Yeah.
So just making kind of oh, well, my neighbor took it or so-and-so took it. And I think the thing of it is a lot of the advisors that are giving the advice, I think only about 4% have any formal training on it.
Really?
So that might be a good question to ask your current advisor.
Great question. We're going to get back to that one. That's a good one. We're going to take a break here in a second. But I understand you have a wonderful offer for the viewer today.
Yeah, so for the first 10 callers, call in, and we're going to actually provide that 360 holistic plan, a written plan. And also we can stress test your existing plan. We're gonna test for all the what ifs in life. What if you get sick? Or what if you live a very long time? And really, what if we have a big market crash? What if the market does really well and we have higher interest rates? All those different scenarios are gonna be part of this plan. So call in now, 888-222-4498.
And the best part is complimentary.
100% complimentary.
Complimentary. We like that word. That's a good one. And because they get expensive. Some of these visits are $1,500 a visit. I've heard that several times. And again, it's about you. The focus is on you and your direction, what you want, a customized plan to your dream retirement. All you have to do is take action. That's your job. Take action. You start this ball rolling. 888-222-4498. We got to take a quick break. We'll be right back after these messages.
How confident are you in your current financial plan? Do you know with certainty how the recent market volatility will affect your future hopes and dreams? How much are you paying in taxes? And how much are you losing to unnecessary high fees? You didn't work to save this money so that you could spend your time worried in retirement. Now is the time to take charge of your finances so you can feel confident about your future. Call in during the next 30 minutes of today's show only to set up an absolutely complimentary, no obligation, full-blown financial review that will result in your own customized written plan. This is a $999 value that we're giving away complimentary to the first 10 people who respond. We'll start with a full-blown analysis of what you already have. By running a report to untangle how much you are currently paying in fees, how you're allocated for risk, and what it's costing to work with your current advisor. Next, we'll identify your goals. Where do you see yourself in the next 5 years? Where do you want to go, and who do you hope to go there with? Is your current financial plan set up to get you there without mishap? Let's design a roadmap to create a financial plan you can follow with confidence. Get the piece that so many people are missing from their retirement. Find out how having a written plan can make a difference to your retirement dreams. Call now to schedule your complimentary, no obligation, full-blown financial review today.
Welcome back, everybody, to 360 Retirement. I'm your host, Paul Gebhard, with my guest, Keith Wiltfong of Capstone Planning. Good stuff, Keith. You know, this is kind of like one of my favorite little sections of the show. It's like the rapid fire segment,
All right.
where we take in some viewer questions. You good with that?
Sounds good.
Let's get going. So we're going to start first with Brian from Orlando. Thanks for the question, Brian. How you doing? Brian wants to know, what advantage does an exchange-traded fund have over mutual funds?
Okay, exchange-traded funds, or also kind of short known as ETFs,
Okay.
Compared to a mutual fund. I think years ago, the biggest difference was an ETF really had to follow like an index, say like the S&P 500, and it really couldn't vary too much off that.
Right.
Where with a mutual fund, usually there's a larger money manager, usually they're more expensive. There's something they call shadow dividends and some shadow income that are some negative aspects of mutual funds. The idea initially behind mutual funds is that they're professionally managed, compared to where the exchange-traded fund is just simply going to follow, say, the Russell or NASDAQ. But nowadays, really, they've allowed more management, more tactical aspects inside ETFs. And so really, it's just a better cost structure. In my opinion, the ETFs are going to significantly outweigh mutual fund contributions.
Really?
Probably over the next 10 to 15 years, just because they're a simplified structure and they're a lot less expensive. And the biggest thing is you control your cost basis. And so let me give you an example on, if I buy a stock, like ABC stock, or a mutual fund, or let's just say ETF, ABC, and I buy it at, say, $40. And then I ride it up for the next year and it goes to 50. If I sell that, it's then a long-term capital gain. Where mutual funds, there can be distributions and you don't have any control of it. So it's all of a sudden you get hit. Even if you lost money in the mutual fund, you still get taxed. So I just feel it's a superior structure that we're probably going to see more and more.
Oh, good one, good one. I hope that helped you, Brian. That was a pretty good, really good answer. You got time for another one?
Yeah.
Okay. We got Ruby wants to know, oh, here we go. Oh, this is interesting. Can I use my 401k to buy whole life insurance?
You could. I'm not sure I would typically recommend that.
Okay.
Because most likely if you're using your 401k, you have to either A, take a distribution, assuming even if you're after 59 and a half and you avoided 10% tax penalty, you still have to take it out and pay the taxes on it to then fund that the life policy. And whole life insurance is kind of interesting animal in general. I think unless you have a really strong purpose for the life insurance aspect of it, it doesn't make, in my opinion, a ton of sense just because you have so much cost of insurance and internal fees and internal costs. To me, the insurance company has too many levers that they can move with. And then if you have to do that via a loan, usually there's going to be interest rate associated with that from the 401k. So I would probably not recommend that, but probably if you want to call in, be happy to talk to you more about that, learn a little bit more about your situation. But just on a surface level, I would probably say it's not a great idea.
No, that's good. Ruby, and if you caught that, the key is to call in, set up an appointment, let him go through all of the stuff with you. So you cover all that. We got time for one more?
Yeah.
Okay, let's hit Jim from St. Augustine. He goes up 61 years old, never married, no kids. How much retirement planning do I need to do since I don't care if there's any money left for anyone when I do die?
Yeah, and we actually get this kind of client every now and then where I don't really have any legacy aspirations, but we still have to plan to make sure that you're okay, right? That everything's going to be okay there. So what if you get sick? How does that then look? It turns into a scenario, maybe long-term care or something like that may make sense if we want to exhaust all the assets there. And then also, if we're taking distributions from our portfolio, making sure that those distributions are going to last as long as you do. We actually had somebody kind of come in a couple years ago, and he got to a point, and he was 88, I think.
Wow.
And then he's like, the doctors had me dead like 10, 15 years ago, and I'm running every day, and I'm swimming. And now they're telling me I probably got another 4 or 5 years. I'm going to live forever. My problem is I don't have any more money. What should I do? I was like, maybe less swimming, less running. But really, if you always want to plan. Even if you don't have anything, you want to make sure that you're going to be okay.
Right. That's a good point. Making sure you can take care of yourself, because that's what you got to rely on. Right?
Absolutely.
And that's a key component there, because I was once asked when I started the business, like, Paul, do you want the government in charge of your future, your employer in charge of your future, or do you want to be in charge of your future? Right?
Right. And I think with the switch, what's really interesting, you kind of say who's in charge of your future. I think 20, 30 years ago, people would work for a company for 30, 40 years.
Yeah,
and the company would take care of them and via a pension, right? They'd have that pension, that paycheck would continue to come in as long as they have breath in their body.
Yes.
And what's kind of switched now is instead of those defined benefit plans, now they're defined contributions, which means it's all on you now. And what's really hard, I think, for people to kind of bite the bullet and live on a little bit less, especially if you have kids and a family and the needs and demands and college. And believe me, I got 3 little ones myself. I know how it goes.
Yeah, you and me both.
But to be disciplined in making those decisions with the understanding that, look, it's on you. It's no one else is there.
Right, that's exactly right. And who knows what you want besides you anyway? Who's really going to understand your goals? It's not like Uncle Sam's going to call you and go, hey, Paul, if you thought about retirement, it's not going to happen.
Right, and we actually had someone from the airlines, part of, you want to make sure on who you're depending on.
Yeah.
Is because we had someone that had an airline pension that was $94,000. But when they went through the restructuring, that went from 94 to 17.
What? Whoa.
Pretty much overnight. Now all of a sudden we're changing, have to be reactive on lifestyle, and that's something that we counted on.
Yeah.
So it's really how those are funded, how those pensions are funded and guaranteed. Those are important questions to ask, especially if you're getting a pension currently.
Yeah, wow. Listen, the phones have been ringing off the hook, Keith. We've got about 4 spots left. Would you remind for the viewers today what you're offered?
Yeah, so the offer today is actually get a written financial plan. It's going to be a 360 retirement plan, which is going to cover you every single angle and aspect of your life. And it's going to work together holistically and tax efficiently. And we're also going to stress test for all the what-ifs in life. So call right now, 888-222-4498.
Speaking of the what-ifs, what if you don't call, right? What if you don't have that question answered? It could change the entire direction of your future. That one thing that could seem to be something so simple, but it turns out to be something so huge. All you have to do is take action to find out. 888-222-4498. We got to take a quick break. We'll be right back after these messages.
As a good saver, you've been putting away money during your working years. Studies find that the biggest fear of retirees is running out of money. Market volatility isn't just the downward movement of stock prices, it's the size and frequency of change. The more dramatic the ups and downs, the higher the volatility. This can put savers who are newly retired or a few years away from being retired at greater risk. Today's generation of retirees is not receiving traditional pensions as our parents or grandparents did. Instead, we have retirement accounts such as 401ks or 403bs. These accounts typically expose your money to market risk. The last thing you want right before retirement is to lose a portion of the money you need for income. But how do you turn these accounts into a retirement income? Is it safe to keep all your retirement money sitting in the stock market? The last thing you want is to lose a portion of the money you need for income due to market loss. By working with a financial professional, you can learn how to turn a portion of your savings into an income stream for life and income for the life of your spouse if you're married. We all have moments in our lives when we wish we had taken action sooner. Don't let procrastination reign on your retirement parade. Act now before it's too late. Please call our office to set up your no-cost, no-obligation retirement income review today.
Hello, everybody, and welcome back to 360 Retirement. I'm your host, Paul Gephardt, with our guest, Keith Wiltfong of Capstone Planning. Again, Keith, good information, great segment. I wanted to jump into something. My mind's kind of spinning here in the break, and I wanted to get on to education a little bit because I got a big heart for youth, and I know we talk a lot about retirement, and we talk about people in pre-retirement, but a lot of times folks don't talk enough about, I think, young people.
Sure.
And you and I both know, the schools don't really teach a whole lot of this stuff. I mean, do you guys offer programs and stuff to your clients for these types of things?
Yeah, so we have client as well as other events that are actually 100% just educational based. So it may be on initially kind of starting out in investing for someone's like a client's kids more or less, basically kind of getting started and getting the balls running. Or we'll have a class on when to take Social Security or the complexities of Medicare, because we know that's kind of alphabet soup there and can be very, very complex.
Yes.
And it's really important to make good decisions, really in all aspects. Or we'll have it on retirement income planning. So me, myself, I'm a huge advocate of education, right? So I got, certified financial planner and Seaman, all the fun designations. But to me, it's just that continuing education allows me to pass that education onto the clients. And I think the biggest thing is the more you understand a plan, the more you are likely to stick with it. Because if you don't really understand it, when things get shaky, I think people will bail. And I really saw, we kind of see that in 2008, where a lot of people capitulated and made that emotional thing and pulled their money out of 401ks and out of their IRAs. And then because they didn't have a plan, they missed out on 2009 and 10 and 11 and 12. We've been on quite a run here in the last 10 years.
Right.
And then when they do hop out, they ask themselves, well, when should I get back in? And once you fall out, if you fall 50% and you're kind of playing scared, it's very difficult to pull the trigger there. So that's why it's critically important to have a plan. And really, that's why we really structure our plans with that 3 bucketing system, because those 2 first buckets really buy us a time horizon. We now have a timeline that says, hey, it's okay if the market gets a little shaky sometimes, because that's what the market does. Right?
Yes, exactly.
So I think that's the biggest thing. That's a peace of mind that we like to give our clients. Like I said, we're a family business, so we treat our clients just like family, just extended family.
Good stuff. I like what you said there about the desperation side. I always tell my kids, you never want to buy anything out of desperation. You never want to sell anything out of desperation either, right? You kind of want to just get calmer head here, work out the strategy, maybe evolve your plan a little bit, but be informed.
Right,
and we're back to education again.
And funny enough, too, so it's almost like counterintuitive to a certain degree, but rebalancing is so critically important.
You said
so for example, like how many people, right, and I think I would do this sometimes at workshops, by a show of hands, wanted to buy stocks in 2008, right?
Right.
But that's exactly what you should be doing. So you have a plan in place, and you kind of have that on autopilot, or you have your trusted advisor that's doing that for you.
Yeah.
So in the 2008, you're actually purchasing, say, U.S. equity or U.S. stock. Then when 2009 comes, you're primed for those gains back. Just like in 1999, right?
Right.
Everyone wanted to buy tech stocks, right? Everyone loved U.S. stocks. And what you should be doing is selling that because it's higher and buying the thing that's lower.
Right. I mean,
that's the heart of rebalancing.
Yeah.
And doing proper rebalancing really goes a very long way, especially if you're talking about a portfolio that's 20, 30, 40 years that has to last. So that's why a lot of what we do is that stress test, or what we call a Monte Carlo simulation.
Yeah.
It's basically just taking thousands of different sequence of returns, because let's face it, we don't know what the market looks like the next 20 years.
True.
We don't know what it looks like tomorrow.
Right.
So if we have this kind of random aspect of it, and they say, hey, here's our goals for retirement. Here's what our aspirations for retirement. What's the success rate? And then we'll give us a number, 80% or 95%, or in some cases 30%. Like, we got to revise some goals maybe if we're getting 30%.
We got to make some adjustments, right? That's good stuff. Yeah, I wanted to ask you a little bit about small business. I mean, my heart is near and dear to the small business owner. They wear a lot of hats, a lot of things going on.
Yes.
One of the things that they need assistance with, I find often, is they're not usually big enough to have their own HR team.
Right.
Or people to set up their 401ks. Do you guys have services in place for the small business owner?
Yeah, we actually deal with 401ks directly.
Oh, really?
So we actually can go in there for small businesses and actually set up the 401ks very
nice.
cost effective for them. And then we deal with anything for small businesses, anything from succession planning to all the way, we recently have someone that's actually selling their business and then planning exactly how that looks. How does the structure look? How are we going to evaluate the business? And then how does it look after this business is gone? Like, how does life look? And that's, I think, a deeper conversation, especially if it's something, a business that someone, was kind of their baby for the last 20 years.
Sure.
And now all of a sudden they're selling it to kind of move on to the greener pastures of retirement.
Sure.
I think that can be a big life adjustment. So preparing for that is a lot of the talks.
Right. What will they do next, right?
Right, yeah.
Whether they stay on and consult or go in a totally different direction, right?
Right, yep.
You still got to plan for that. So that's very interesting. And you're right. A lot of people are putting their blood, sweat, and tears in building this
Yes.
baby, whether they're going to succeed it or they're going to sell it. There's a lot of strategic plans you guys can put together to help out. Right?
Absolutely, yeah.
Good stuff. Well, listen, we're coming down to the end. It's been a nice time with you once again. I really appreciate you being with me today, Keith. Folks, it's really about you and what you plan. What do you want your tomorrow to look like? Find out today. Reserve your spot. Set yourself on a peaceful retirement. Get yourself in the position you've always dreamed of being. And maybe you've had a plan. Maybe you're just not sure if that plan still fits. Find out. All you have to do is reach out to Keith and his team. It's a complimentary consultation, 360 retirement review. Cover everything. The number's 888-222-4498. Again, that's 888-222-4498. Keith, I got to tell you, I really enjoyed being with you again today.
It's always a pleasure.
Yeah, and really changing lives.
Yeah.
And folks, that's what it's about. Changing your life. Enjoying retirement. We want to thank you so much for being with us today. Take care of yourself and be well, everybody.